The fastest learner wins every battle before it begins. Whether it's business, influence, or survival, the one who learns, adapts, and strategizes first is untouchable. What if learning wasn't a struggle? What if new skills, strategies, and information could lock into your brain effortlessly without hours of repetition or frustration? Most people treat learning like a chore. They cram, they force-feed information, and they wonder why nothing sticks. But the smartest minds, the ones who dominate their fields, don't rely on willpower alone. They train their brains to learn automatically. They create a system where knowledge absorbs itself, where mastery feels effortless. And today, you're going to learn how to do the same. Most people believe learning is about brute force. Read more, study harder, practice until your brain is exhausted. But that's a slow, painful way to learn. Because here's the truth. Your brain isn't designed to memorize random information. It's designed to recognize patterns, automate processes, and make thinking effortless. Think about it. You don't actively think about how to walk, drive, or read. You don't break down every step like you did when you first learned them. Why? Because your brain stored those actions as automated processes, allowing you to focus on higher-level thinking. Now imagine if you could apply that same automation to learning any skill. Languages, persuasion, problem-solving, strategy, power dynamics. Instead of forcing yourself to remember information, your brain would absorb, process, and apply knowledge automatically. This is the foundation of cognitive automation, a system that trains your brain to learn without effort. Instead of relying on repetition, you program your mind to recognize key patterns, make connections instantly, and store knowledge permanently. So you think and react faster than everyone else. Geniuses don't learn more. They learn smarter. They build mental shortcuts so that knowledge flows naturally instead of being something they have to retrieve. The real question is, what if you could train your mind to do the same? Most people think learning is about stuffing more information into their brains. But that's not how geniuses do it. Your mind isn't a storage unit. It's a network. The faster you create connections, the easier learning becomes. Think of your brain like a dense jungle. When you learn something new, it's like hacking a small path through the overgrowth. If you never revisit it, the path disappears. But repeat the journey enough times, and it turns into a clear highway, where ideas flow effortlessly. Geniuses don't just learn more. They automate knowledge by creating shortcuts in their minds. Here's how. How to automate learning faster. 1. Chunk information. Think in patterns, not pieces. Your brain hates random facts, but it loves patterns. Instead of memorizing isolated ideas, group them into meaningful clusters. Example. If you're learning negotiation, don't just memorize tricks. Study the psychology behind them. Once you understand the underlying patterns, every new tactic becomes instantly recognizable. Teach it instantly. Lock it in your brain. The fastest way to own knowledge is to teach it. Even if you have no audience, say it out loud, write it in your own words, or imagine explaining it to a beginner. Why? Because teaching forces your brain to organize information, making it easier to recall later. After learning something new, explain it without looking at your notes. If you struggle, that means you need to simplify it further. 3. Link new knowledge to existing skills. Build on what you already know. Learning in isolation is inefficient, but when you attach new knowledge to something you're already good at, it sticks faster. Example. If you're learning persuasion, connect it to storytelling. If you're a good communicator or leadership, if you manage people. The brain builds on existing strengths, making recall almost automatic. Today, when you learn something new, immediately do one of the following. Chunk it into patterns. Teach it out loud. Link it to something you already know. The faster you create mental shortcuts, the faster you'll absorb, retain, and apply knowledge like a genius. Most people think intelligence comes from constantly grinding, But high-level thinkers let their brain do the work for them, even when they're not actively thinking. Have you ever struggled with a problem only to have the answer suddenly hit you in the shower or before bed? That's not magic. That's your subconscious mind doing the heavy lifting. Your brain is like a supercomputer, running in the background even when you're not aware of it. The trick? Train it to work for you on autopilot. How to make your brain learn on autopilot 1. Sleep on. Problems. Turn sleep into a learning tool. Before bed, review what you're trying to master. Concepts, skills, or problems. While you sleep, your brain strengthens neural connections, making recall easier the next day. Example: Thomas Edison would hold steel balls in his hands while dozing. Off. The moment he fell asleep, the balls would drop, waking him up right as his subconscious generated ideas. Before sleeping tonight, write down a question or concept you want your brain to process. When you wake up, write down whatever thoughts come to mind. Prime your mind with questions. Force your brain to think smarter. Instead of forcing yourself to memorize, ask better questions and let your subconscious find the answers. Example questions. How does this connect to what I already know? What's a real-world way I can use this? What would happen if I flipped this idea upside down? Your mind hates open loops. When you ask it a question, it will keep working on the answer without you realizing it. Next time you learn something new, instead of just reading or watching, write down one deep question about it and let your subconscious process it. 3. Use strategic downtime. Let your brain make connections in silence. Constant input overloads your brain, but when you step away, your mind naturally organizes and connects information. The best ideas don't come when you're working. They come when you take a break. Example: Einstein played the violin when stuck on tough physics problems. The distraction let his brain process ideas in the background. Instead of mindlessly scrolling social media, use thinking breaks. Go for a walk, meditate, or do a simple task. Today, after consuming new information, step away from screens for 10 minutes and let your mind work in the background. Your brain is already working. Make it work for you. The smartest people don't think harder. They think smarter by using their subconscious mind to do the heavy lifting. If you start priming your mind with the right inputs, using sleep as a learning tool, and giving yourself strategic downtime, you'll start noticing something incredible. Ideas will come faster, problem solving will feel effortless, and learning will happen on autopilot. Before moving ahead, let me introduce you to the Whisper Handbook. This is not just a book. It's your key to power, a guide to mastering the hidden forces of influence, control, and persuasion. It doesn't teach you to beg for respect. It doesn't tell you to play fair. It shows you how to bend reality in your favor without anyone realizing you did. If you've ever felt ignored, outplayed, or powerless, that ends now. This book will change you. Once you read it, there is no going back. You won't just see the game, you'll control it. You won't just learn power, you'll become it. Most people will hesitate. That's why they stay weak. But if you're reading this, you already know power is within reach. Limited time offer. Get your copy at a discount. Use promo code IAMSTUDENT at checkout and unlock an exclusive discount, because true mastery shouldn't be out of reach. Turn the page, enter the shadows. Take control. Claim your copy now. Most people learn slowly because they rely on repetition, without variety, reading the same book over and over, watching the same type of content, or taking notes they never revisit. But true mastery doesn't come from blind repetition. It comes from spaced exposure, encountering the same ideas from different angles until they become second nature. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you lift the same weight the same way every day, you'll plateau. But if you switch up the exercise, the angle, and the intensity, you'll grow stronger faster. Geniuses don't just study a skill, They immerse themselves in it from all directions. Here's how to do the same. How to use the exposure loop for rapid mastery. 1. Expose yourself daily. Surround your mind with the skill. If you want to master persuasion, don't just read one book and move on. Immerse yourself in it daily. Watch debates and sales pitches. Study persuasion techniques in movies. Observe how charismatic people speak in real life. Your brain will start recognizing patterns on its own, and suddenly, persuasion won't be something you study, but something you instinctively understand. Action step. Pick a skill you're learning and surround yourself with it. Through books, videos, conversations, and real-life examples. 2. Change the format. Activate different parts of your brain. If you only read about something, you're using just one learning pathway. Instead, switch up how you consume information. Read an article, then watch a video. Write down your thoughts, then talk about it out loud. Listen to a podcast, then teach the concept to someone else. Each format activates different parts of your brain, making the knowledge stick faster and longer. Action step. Next time you learn something, engage with it in at least 3 different formats: reading, watching, writing, explaining. Use it immediately. Apply or forget. Knowledge fades unless applied. The fastest way to make something stick forever is to use it within 24 hours. If you can't apply it in real life yet, at least visualize using it. Imagine yourself applying the skill in a real scenario. Write about it. Take 5 minutes to journal how you'd use it. Debrief your learning. Summarize it to someone else. Action step. Whatever you learn today, find a way to use it immediately, even if it's just explaining it out loud to yourself. Mastery is a game of repeated exposure. If you only read something once, you'll forget it. If you only practice in one way, you'll plateau. But if you expose yourself repeatedly in different formats and apply it immediately, mastery becomes automatic. The difference between an average learner and an elite mind isn't talent. It's how often and how deeply they expose themselves to knowledge. Now choose a skill and start looping it into your daily life. Your brain will take care of the rest. You now have the blueprint. This is how you train your mind to learn effortlessly, think faster, and master any skill without burnout. Most people struggle with learning because they fight against their own brains. You won't. Instead, you'll create shortcuts that make information flow naturally. You'll train your subconscious to process knowledge while you're not even thinking about it. And you'll master any skill by using the exposure loop to turn knowledge into instinct. This isn't just about learning faster. It's about rewiring your mind for effortless dominance. Most people will never do this. But if you do, you'll separate yourself from the competition forever. Now the question is, what will you learn next? Most people will read this and do nothing. They'll nod, feel inspired, and go back to their old ways, forgetting everything by tomorrow. But you're not most people. If you want to separate yourself from the competition, then here's your challenge. Step 1. Choose one skill. Pick one skill you've always wanted to master, something that, if you learned it, would make a massive impact on your life. Step 2. Apply the exposure loop for 7 days. Every day, expose yourself to that skill in at least 3 different ways. Read about it, watch a video, write your thoughts, explain it to someone, practice it. Step 3. Use it in real life. Within 24 hours of learning something new, find a way to use it, even if it's just applying one idea, one small action, or one mental shift. Make it real. Bonus challenge. Before bed, write down one question related to what you're learning and let your subconscious work on it overnight. Do this for a week and see how much faster your mind connects ideas.